let's take a step back from that reference to your dialog box for a moment and just think about if a user is modeling something, what are some of the side effects or some of the consequences that can occur? And sometimes we create external references that are not required. Okay, so this webinar is sort of like a follow-on to previous ones where we've talked about top-down design and advanced assembly extension and things like copy geometry and polish geometry. So like we can always, if we want, copy things that we don't need in the particular model. We can just bring everything in from a higher level. But what that does is create a local copy and then a copy that then needs to be updated, right? So it has potentially extra things that it doesn't actually need. That makes the file size larger, makes performance slower, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's the first one. Second one is that, users sometimes will get an error or a warning in their model saying that this has not been updated, but they don't do anything about it. Okay. So that could mean that user A has got part A in, and they're working on it. Maybe they're in the context of wind chill and so forth, and they've made a change to it. But then user B, it gets an informational message saying that part A has been updated, but then in their part B, they decide not to do it. Okay, so if they don't do it, I guess what that means is the model that they're creating might not be correct. And so potentially could cause some instability. Yeah, that's probably they're probably the main things from there. All right, so this is sort of important to note that in Creo references are memory based. So sometimes what we see when we're looking at the reference viewer is like a reference to a missing model. Okay, now that missing model, there's one of two scenarios there really. One is that it's actually the model exists, but it's not loaded into session. And there are potentially configs and things you can do there to make sure that loads in, or you can load it in manually. The second part of it is that it's actually linked to a model that actually no longer exists. So maybe that model's been, after we've created the reference to it, that model's been physically deleted from the files, from the system, or renamed or something, and then this particular file no longer knows where it is. Okay, so that can happen. Depending on the scenario there, we're able to then, remove references if we need to from the reference viewer dialog box. In other cases, we need to go back and redefine the feature. But the reference viewer can certainly tell us both of those scenarios and allow us to resolve that. Okay, so yes, the reference viewer can allow us to look at like parent-child relationships, help us to understand like which features rely on each other. If we're looking at maybe thinking about, I want to delete something, I can use the reference viewer to determine this. Alternative to that is just trying to delete it out of the model tree and then see what happens. That can work, but also we're not sure about, maybe we need to know about that deletion in the context of another higher level assembly, what problems that's gonna cause. Okay. So yeah, we can resolve external references. So if we look at, as I just sort of mentioned, components which are outside of the current assembly. So sometimes we'll have things like copy geometry, publish geometry features that we need to understand how those links work, and whether or not, if we need to resolve a feature that's referring to those. So yeah, I mean, as you're probably aware, models can get quite complex, and different workflows yield different reference structures. Okay, and so yeah, once again we can break or redefine external references. The reference viewer can allow us to determine the features that cause that, and then by redefining the features, we can then yeah, resolve that. Yeah, again, additional references, this really comes down to like what if we've got extra references that we don't need, then let's not have them. And yeah, if we've got legacy data, it helps us to clean that up. So yeah, we can also use it to debug assembly constraints and yeah, maintain the model integrity. All right, so let's not go too much further into that. We've also got the ability to look at circular references. So again, following on from our previous webinar, we have the circular references, and this inside of this reference viewer, we also have, if we look at paths, we have the ability to show circular paths. So yeah, that we'll have a look at that in a demo in a moment. Okay.